So hey everybody, welcome to a Brilliant Businesses podcast. My name is Nick Bryant, and this has been a long time coming.
It has.
John and I have been trying to get together for
years
to talk about what he's been up to. But I'm very pleased to be joined today by John Traquair from Fixio, which used to be the Mac Man.
And still is. There are still two Mac Man shops. You've caught me sort of like mid-transition between Mac Man and Fixio, but ultimately this is Fixio now.
Yeah. So, but I think what we can do is, if we can, is you could tell us how the Mac Man all came about. So we'll start from there and then go into why you've gone into Fixio, if that's cool.
So the Mac Man was my business partner. He set that up. In the mid-noughties, 2005, 2006, 2007, he was working in tech retail. And this is pre-iPhone, but Apple had launched the Apple stores. So they were already on the ascendancy because the Apple stores, in my opinion, was the big game changer for Apple. Yeah. But the iPhone hadn't yet come, so it wasn't like a ubiquitous household name. And he was working for Solutions, which is a local company in Brighton, which is like the iStore in Tunbridge Wells in terms of it looks like an Apple store. It purports to be an Apple store, but it's not an actual Apple store. And he was working there. And he was working evenings and weekends, sort of helping customers that he'd met, doing on-site installs because Solutions weren't offering that as a service. So he was doing that. Okay. So he's your classic sort of specialist that decided to go self-employed. And he'd been doing that for about 5 years. And then I came back from travelling, and we were both about 30. And I came back from travelling with my girlfriend, now wife. We've been away for a year. And I came back, and he had this huge house in Brighton, which no one really sort of has these huge houses. And he was looking after it for his girlfriend's boss or something who was land banking it, waiting for planning approval or something. Yeah. So I lived with him, and he'd been doing it for 5 years. And he had one member of staff that was like a part-time PA. And he went to work. I wasn't working, and I just remember his phone was just like, it just didn't stop ringing. Yeah, right. So I thought two things. I thought, one, your PA is not getting your phone calls. Two, you're onto something. This is really big. So I sort of said to him, like, look, I want to work with you. This is brilliant. And he was like, yeah, but you've never worked in tech. You've never worked in retail. This is not something I can really do with you. And I was like, yeah, okay, good point. And then we did decide that what we could do was set up a remote session business, so people would access your computer remotely and fix it remotely. But this is 2010, and the technology wasn't quite there, and neither was the trust. So the technology we were using, and we still use now, TeamViewer, are the sponsors of Manchester United now. Oh, wow. So that's sort of like how much we've progressed in the last 10, 11 years. But at the time, people were unwilling to sort of allow you to install TeamViewer on their computer and then access remotely. So it never really happened. But because of that, we did take the lease out on the Brighton, what is now our Brighton shop in Quebec Street in Hangover. And I then had to sort of go away and go, look, I'm in my early 30s. What I actually need to do is sort of like settle down. I want to get a mortgage. I want to have children. I want to get married. All these sort of things, which sort of a startup didn't really conduce to over the next sort of couple of years. So I went back into business, music rights management, which I'd sort of done in my 20s before I went travelling. And I was working up in Getty Images, which is the first time I'd worked for like a big sort of American multinational headquarters up in Camden. And I was doing that sort of trek. We'd just moved to Tunbridge Wells. We'd just had a kid, just bought a house, doing that trek up to Camden and back. And I was just like, this is not for me. So I went back to Matt and was like, look, I've had another thought. What we do is I do what you do in Brighton, but I do it in Tunbridge Wells. But the difference is I'm going to do it from a shop. So it's going to be retail. He didn't want to do it, and I had to sort of beg him. And then eventually I sort of had to sort of convince him, almost dupe him into sort of agreeing to let me do it. Right. And then we set it up. So it was actually 9 years ago last week. It was the 1st of December 2012 that the Pantiles shop opened. Yeah. And just immediately it was busy. And I remember thinking, I want something that's a work-life balance. I've just done that awful commute. I've got a baby that's only a few months old. Yeah. I'm probably only going to open sort of like 3 or 4 days a week and just do it part-time. And then immediately you're 7 days a week. And then you go home and you're answering those emails that you didn't get a chance to in the daytime. Yeah. Within a few months, I was employing someone. But after a year, there was a team of 4. And we were doing, in terms of revenue, way, 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 way better than I could ever imagined. And, rewind to sort of like before we opened, I remember going to the bank and asking for a 7,000 overdraft. and got nothing.
Right.
They wouldn't give me an overdraft, wouldn't give me a credit card. So every invoice, 60 quid I was chasing it, 80 quid I was chasing it, because cash flow was like a daily sort of basis.
Yeah.
And the real thing that helped the business grow was I started stocking secondhand. So pre-owned Apple computers, I quickly realised these are like Rolexes. These are great. They last for years. People want them. They might not want to pay the VAT or the recommended retail price, but they want them a little bit older. But pre-owned is fine.
Yeah.
So all my cash flow was going on that. And then we moved up into the town centre of Tunbridge Wells because we had just outgrown the small shop in the Pantiles. Then in 2017, we opened 2 more shops. And it was really just a sort of a way to see whether we could replicate what we do without us being the owner and operator there.
Yeah.
So I did Sevenoaks and Matt did Horsham.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, when COVID happened, we realised that what we needed to do was to sort of restructure the business to have much bigger premises. So we closed the Horsham shop, which was only sort of breaking even rather than making a profit, and we moved it to Crawley, and we've now got a big business there, like a big premises there, which is allowing us to gear us up to really push on with online sales and support, which are both very growing segments.
Yeah.
The Fixio thing comes about in terms of how these sort of things clash, how me and him and everything coming together collides, is that we wanted to grow the business, and we wanted to grow the business more than the 4 shops. And we've always kind of known that using the word Mac is a problem, because we're not Apple. And if you are with Apple, like iStore and Solutions, they won't ever let you use the word Mac or iPhone or Apple. So we actually had dialogue with Apple, and we sort of said, look, we want to grow, we want to do more than this. And they were like, no, you can't do it. And now you're on our radar. We're going to have to tell you, you've got to stop doing it. So we'd never got a cease and desist, but we were at that point where it was like, we've kind of hit the ceiling of growth. And we wanted to trademark it as well, so we could sort of grow beyond the sort of towns we live in, sort of thing, so we could sort of grow it larger. And we spoke to a trademark specialist who said, you can't trademark this because of the word Mac in the title, and if you don't trademark your brand, if you fall out with the licensee or the person that you've put in charge of it, they can continue to trade under that name because you haven't got any way of telling them to take the sign down. Right. So we needed a new name, and I spent from August 2020 until sort of like a couple of months, so well over a year. It was just like, I couldn't
brainstorming.
I couldn't crack it.
Yeah.
And every name I thought of, I was like, yes, and then I'd go no, and then I'd speak to someone else and go no, and then I just thought, actually, I've just got to choose something. Yeah. Because as soon as you just do it and you make it real, and we'll see in 2022 with the sort of marketing ideas that we've got, it then just becomes real. What I wasn't expecting is that some people were like genuinely upset. So we had like emails and letters and people writing comments on social media saying, can't believe you've done this. Oh. And you're like, we're still the same team, we're still the same owners, we're still Apple specialists, but we just haven't got the word Mac in the title anymore, or the word man, which interestingly in 2021 people came back to us and said, I like the fact that you've dropped the name man, because of the sort of Mr. Potato, is now just Potato Head, is he? I don't know. I don't know. So the man has been dropped, the Mac has been dropped. So Fixio, it's just where we're going. It's the direction that we're heading in. It also allows us not to have that question of like, not only do you only do Macs, which is a genuine question that people genuinely ask, like, do you do iPhones? Yeah, we do a lot more iPhones than we do anything else because people are just prone to drop them more than anything else. Absolutely, yeah. But any tech as well, it allows us to sort of say we're not just Apple specialists, but we're Samsung specialists, we're Xbox One specialists, and all the sort of consumer technology that isn't, so cheap that it's cheap enough to like the Google laptop. Some of those machines are just so cheap. They were selling the Google ones on Black Friday for £140. I mean, how you can sell a new piece of kit for £140, and that's including all the costs and taxes, I don't know. No. But your Chromebook is never going to be repairable, but your Samsung Galaxies and your Microsoft Surface Pros and your Dell XPSs, there's some really good other equipment out there, which when I started in 2012 just wasn't on the scene. Apple were the leaders of the luxury tech, and now there's a lot of other companies that have come up to that standard. Especially those machines I've just described.
I guess you when you jumped on board in 2011, 2012, it was the right time completely. Because Apple were,
it was unbelievably the right time, because it was
all strategic, of course.
No, it was pure fluke. I mean, for all I know, my friend, because if you want to be an entrepreneur, and that's the word that I had in my head for years, I want to run my own business. I never wanted to particularly to be self-employed. I wanted to run a business. You can't, unless you've got some sort of great idea, which hardly anybody has. You have to sort of lean on someone else. So I sort of well, what idea am I going to borrow, or who am I going to partner up with? And my friend Matt, he was never going to, he'd been doing it for 5 years and hadn't sort of scaled it. So I sort of come in, not to sort of say, look, I'm going to scale it. I just said, look, I'm just going to copy you. But it was the unbelievable luck of it is, I remember just as we opened, the iPad mini was just launched, which was really popular. And the iPhone 5 was just launched. So we were just starting to get the 4s and the 4Ss in for repair, because I'd say on the whole, most iPhones, if you drop them a few times, they're strong. But after a sort of a year and a half, if you're regularly dropping them, they do crack eventually. So he hadn't seen that. So the Mac Man in 2012 when I joined, just weren't doing phones and pads. So I was like, I'm going to start doing phones and pads, because I'm getting 2 or 3 people a day coming in about their computer, but I'm getting 3 or 4 people a day coming in about their iPhone. So really quickly, I was like, anything Apple, we do it. So the timing was unbelievable, and now we're at a stage where if you get your car serviced, you just accept it. You just go, there's an MOT, but I got to get this serviced as well. And I think that tech repair is entering that territory where people realise that actually there might be £100-200 a year that I have to spend on the fact that I've dropped it, or I've knocked a glass of wine over it, or I've picked up a bug that I shouldn't have, and that sort of cost. I think people are much more willing to accept now than what they were 10 years ago as well.
And also, I struggle with Apple products sometimes, just keeping up to date with them as far as the new iOS system, or else it's got on there, and how do you use it? And so you help people with that as well?
I think the reason why, as a business, so this is sort of beyond the sort of luck of the fact that there's more people using iPhones than there were. The fact that we're as good with software as we are with hardware really sets us apart. So people can come in, they can ask questions, they can book an appointment, they can book a phone call, which is charged for, or if they're a business and they're on the pre-play plan, then it'll be free. But the guys that we've got that are taking those calls and that are dealing with the customers, their knowledge of software is exceptional. And so we're not just getting your phone in and fixing it. We can help you with any issue that you have, and that's probably the way that we're going, being software specialists, because hardware, certainly Apple, it's becoming micro. So in a laptop now, your logic board, so the motherboard, the engine of the machine, is the same size as what an iPad was 10 years ago. They are just tiny now. That's mainly battery and speakers. The actual motherboard is tiny. So software is where it's going. Software is where a lot of people have problems with, a lot of questions. So the hardware repair is there, but it's the software side of it is definitely with just quickly with the updates. My 2 tips would be. Your iPhone, set it to auto, because the iPhone ones are the ones that don't make a dramatic change, and that if you do it while you're sleeping, you don't have to do it. You don't have to worry about it. Just set it so you just wake up and go, oh, I've now got 14.1.2, and last night I had 14.1.1. With the Macs, I'm more of the opinion of wait until one has finished its course. So say Big Sur has just been replaced by Monterey. I'm now only just installing Big Sur from Catalina, because Monterey is now out. When Monterey is at the end of its course, I will do the same with that, because they can sort of make mistakes more with Mac OS.
Teething problems, I guess.
So even just basic things with I think it was with Big Sur when it first launched, rather than if you installed it now, there was a problem with the using mail and searching for words, which is something that I rely on massively.
Sure,
yeah. So that's my opinions
Good tips right there. So what's for the future then? How do you see it going? Is it more and more stores? Is it just building on what you've already got?
The online sales and the remote support are the two things that we focused on since COVID hit, because we were reliant on people just coming into the shops.
Yeah.
And that just suddenly stopped.
Sure.
So one day, well, certainly the start of March 2020, we wouldn't have predicted that. And then by the end of March, all the shops were shut.
Yeah.
So, and we knew that we could have sold a lot more computers if we had them in stock, or if we had the ability. So we furloughed everybody, and Matt and I kept working, and we were doing online sales, but we just sort of thought, wow, we've missed a trick here. People they just couldn't get the tech. The remote support side of things is my business partner, who is the genuine techie. He loves nothing more than being under the bonnet of a computer. So that's the sort of super geeky, the sort of uber techie sort of stuff, and that's the direction that he's growing in. So he's got his own team, and that's what he's pushing. With retail, which is the thing that sort of floats my boat a lot more. I do want to grow it. I do want Fixio to be the brand, but I think the key is going to be the working with Apple more and the trademarking the name, which will allow me to sort of comfortably hand it over to somebody else and sort of say, look, this is what I've done. You've got Sevenoaks, you've got One Man Band, you've got Crawley, you've got Industrial Estate, you've got Tunbridge Wells Town Centre, you've got Brighton sort of residential area. What sort of set shop would you think would suit you the best? This is how we've done it. See how you get on. And I was only at Sevenoaks yesterday, and I saw that they've just opened a Gales in Sevenoaks.
Oh right, yeah.
They've just opened one in Tunbridge Wells last year,
Street,
and they're great bakeries, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Like, just
they're queuing outside.
And I thought to myself, that could be a business model. Wherever Gales has opened a shop, I'm going to open a Fixio.
Follow that.
Yeah, because how they've chosen their locations, I don't know. But everyone that you go to, everyone you see, there's a queue outside.
I know. There was one in Greenwich. I was in Greenwich the other day, and you one there with queues outside as well.
Yeah.
There you go. And they Fixio in Greenwich.
Yeah.
You clearly love it, John. So what is it that you love about it the most? What do you get from it? What's the best part of it for you? What you do? Put you on the spot there, but
I mean, the word that I used earlier with the entrepreneur, it's like I had that in my mind for years. So when I left college, I got a job working. Have you heard of the PRS, the Performing Rights Society?
Yes, I have.
So I was working there, and I was working there for 7 years, and I loved it there. It was a great place to work, but I just sort of had this sort of feeling of like, I'm nearly 30, and I want to know what it's like to work for yourself. And I didn't really know why. And then one of my clients was a classic entrepreneur. And I just said to him, I was like, look, how have you done this? And he's just like, I don't know. There is no secret. I've just done it. And I was like, can you give me a job? And he said, yeah. And when I left the PRS to go and work for him, I remember my boss saying, what are you doing? And even somebody that worked for Darren called me up and said, what are you doing? You're leaving a really good job to come and work for this guy that doesn't know what he's doing from one day to the next. But I think I just needed to see it for myself. Like, how has somebody built up a really good business? And I think the only trick is he just did it.
Just get on with it.
Now I'm older, so that was my late 20s, I'm now in my early 40s. I realise I'm sort of classic, sort of high energy, ADHD. I enjoy putting different caps on. So I like putting a finance cap on, and then literally a minute later, HR, then I take a call and I've got to do sales, and then I've got to think constantly about customer service, and in the back of my mind, I've got HR, recruitment and retention. And I just enjoy it. I just enjoy the sort of
juggling all those
the busyness of it that I can now understand why when I was at work and I had to sort of be there at 9 and leave at 6 and 5 days a week, that I didn't really enjoy that sort of, I've got one small little bit of the cog to sort of help. I much prefer the putting different hats on all day.
Very good. Like a true entrepreneur.
But it's only now that I can sort of say that. Like I didn't really feel like I was a true entrepreneur. I just wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I think that's why the next step I'm sort of thinking, well, actually, let's see if I can sort of help other people set up these shops, because then that's almost like another sort of challenge.
Yeah, giving something back, I guess, as well to help other people. Well, thank you, John. That's been great. We got there in the end to talk to you. Thanks very much for sharing all about Fixio and where you're going with it. It's been really interesting. All John's details will be on this podcast. If you need to talk to John, all his details will be there. If anything about Mac or anything about Apple or any of the other products that you mentioned, you can help them with that, can't you? So based in Tunbridge Wells, Sevenoaks, Crawley, Brighton. That's it.
Yeah.
Perfect. So thank you. Good to talk to you.
Thanks, Nick.
And I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks, John. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.